I think most of our society thinks that if there's a God, he's just out there somewhere, right? But what if he's closer than you think? What if he's actually looking for you? What if he's actually creeping around your room in the middle of the night? No, I'm kidding. Not like that. But what if God is trying to speak to you in the middle of the night? You never know. In this episode of All the Things I Don't Want You to Talk About, we kind of unpack this idea of the fourth watch of the night, this time frame when many people seem to have encounters with God, maybe through dreams or maybe through an opening in their schedule because we're so busy during the day. But in the middle of the night, sometimes we wake up and it just seems like maybe this is an opportune time to connect with the God of the universe if he's out there, right? So in this episode, we talk about that. It's a really fascinating conversation that Rob and Amanda and myself have about what God might be up to if he's seeking after us and what might happen if we seek after him back. So I really hope that you'll tune in. I hope that this conversation may kind of open up some ideas for you or may even give you a different perspective on how to respond to a God who might be reaching out to you. So enjoy this episode of All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About. And by the way, if you like this episode and you like this kind of conversation, Rob has a lot more episodes in this whole podcast series, All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About. I encourage you to go to tabootalkback.com to find some of his other work. In this particular collection, this is just the collection on this particular YouTube channel of conversations that I'm a part of as kind of the religion contributor for this podcast series. So anyway, I hope that you enjoy this conversation, and I hope you'll continue listening to more of this project. Enjoy this conversation between Rob Byrd, Amanda Jones, and myself.
Welcome to All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About podcast. This podcast will explore all the subjects that make the insecure squirm in their seats. Religion, politics, local and national, the Constitution of the United States, and the wheel of love and hate, to just name a few. Stay with us as we use our freedom of speech to delve into the good and the bad. If this podcast is not for you, feel free to find another one. Without any further ado, here comes All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About podcast. Good day and welcome to All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About. You can find us at tabootalkback.com. All the other episodes are all there. I try to keep that updated with all the podcasts that we do, which we're not trying to do 2-3 a week if we can. Certainly there'll be one a week. But this week, as of right now, we've got Mylan Bittenbender here in the studio. Good day to you, Mylan.
Good day, Rob.
And we have Amanda Jones also in the studio. Good day to you.
Good day to you also.
Good day. Okay.
And everybody.
And everybody else out there that could possibly be listening.
Amanda always has this really sweet voice.
Yes, but don't make her mad. Don't make her mad, though. That sweet voice changes.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. Well, yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well, I think we had that
changed right there.
Yeah,
just a little.
Well, you gotta.
I think we had that conversation the other day.
You gotta get a little bass in your voice
yeah.
sometimes. Get the kids a
When
listen.
you said I'm not excited, I'm sure it does sound like you might be. So yes.
Well, there's a difference between angry and being excited.
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry. I got us off on a rabbit trail.
Well, that's okay. we had a conversation the other day on the radio show that it ran her right out of the room.
Well, it wasn't on air, though. It was after we were done, but we started talking about things, and I had to walk out of the room. And it wasn't because I was offended or anything. It was just, oh
emotional.
My gosh, like it's all a lie. It's all true. Like all those types of feelings.
Yes. It happens when you get red pilled.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, Mylan, this is going to be kind of an interesting talk because it's not necessarily something that's biblical. But I have to say, the other day I woke up, and a lot of times I'll wake up at, I'll wake up almost every night between 3 and 5.
Oh,
almost every night. And when I wake up, sometimes I'll go back and lay down. And if I can't get back to sleep, I will just turn on TV and I watch a lot of YouTube videos. And one night, it was 2-3 weeks ago or so, I woke up, couldn't get back to sleep, so I turned on YouTube, and the first video that pops up on my recommended one was a video about watch hours and about the fourth watch hour, which is from 3 to 5 in the morning. I just kind of started watching. Okay, what the heck? I had a cool thumbnail. I had started listening to it, and it said something about C.S. Lewis says to do this between 3 and 5 to communicate with God. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So I start watching it. And I mean, it was just so whether it's providential that it ends up in my timeline right there when I'm awake. And I start watching it, and it starts going into that if you wake up between 3 and 5 every night, it's not most likely an effect of insomnia. It's an effect of that God is trying to communicate with you. And it kind of goes on to that and says that within that, don't try to force yourself to sleep. Take this time and pray to God, talk to God, ask him to fight the forces of evil, ask him to be with you and try to communicate and ask those questions you want to ask and, asking him to be with you. But it just seems so weird to me. And I actually watched that video now 2 or 3 times. And each time I'm like, that just seemed, it just seems so strange to me that it all kind of aligned up to say at 3 in the morning, but it's usually about 3:30 I'll wake up, or 4, right in that area. Sometimes just before 5, but it's always during that time. Now, I always attribute it that I had to get up and use the bathroom.
I was just going to say, Rob, I always get up during that time, and it's usually my bladder speaking.
And that's what it is. But maybe the bladder is God's way of saying it's time for us to talk.
Yeah. Well, and for us middle-aged guys, it's a real thing.
It is.
But for me, there are times when I get up, I use the restroom, I head back to bed, and man, I'm out again before my head hits the pillow. But there's a lot of other times where I can't get back to sleep. Yeah,
It was always that way for me, Mike. Yeah. Always that way. I would get up, go to the bed, boom. I'm going to sleep instantly by the time. Probably never really even woke up to walk to the bathroom and use it and come back. So
this is a recent development
since I started doing these podcasts with you.
Oh boy, I'm sorry. I mean, no, I'm not sorry at all.
I'm like we said right at the beginning of doing these. I'm searching, I'm exploring, I'm trying to ask some questions that I haven't asked in a long time.
Yeah.
And because of that, I don't know, it just felt really strange to me, coincidental. But then I don't really believe in coincidences. Yes, they do happen here and there, but I, as a whole, I don't believe in coincidences. So I'm still searching, trying to figure out why is. And it goes on to talk about that these people, and I don't consider myself a godly person. I think I find myself someone who is searching and looking, but I don't feel, I'm not like, jumping in the aisles at church and dancing and.
Well, but in a way, you're watching right now. You know what I mean? Like if you think of it from that perspective, you're watching right now. You're going to become like I've heard it a few times, like a watchman, like somebody who's watching and is getting ready. Like you're prepared,
talk about
you're ready.
That in some of these videos too.
Right. And so like maybe that's your journey right now, is you're getting ready to become a watchman.
Well, first of all, Rob, I love to hear that. And there's something about, a lot of people have this idea that religion is just kind of this thing. We're in control of it. It's in our headspace. It's something that we believe or don't believe, and it's kind of something we have a grasp on or don't have a grasp on. We can accept it. We can reject it. At the end of the day, it's kind of, God is somewhere out there, and I'm here trying to figure this. But if you read the Bible, you look at the Bible, you find that God is consistently reaching out to people for something more than just, hey, will you be a part of my religion?
Yeah.
He's reaching out for an actual relationship with people. And, for so many people, it's hard to begin to even imagine a relationship with somebody you can't see with your physical eyes, you can't hear with your physical ears. But we also know that we are very spiritual beings. Every culture from every time frame has believed that we're spiritual beings, that there's more to us than just the 5 senses that we can pick up with our physical, the physical part of who we are, that there's something deeper. And I do believe that is, part of that whole God-shaped hole kind of thing, that there's a spiritual part of us that recognizes there's a God out there and he wants to connect with us. I think fear keeps us connecting because we're just not sure what the heck that means or what it might look like. Sometimes it's skepticism. Sometimes it's fear of man. What are other people going to think? But yeah, I think, all of us, I really believe that all of us at some point go through a phase where, there's the space between us and God gets thinner and thinner. Mm-hmm. And depending on our reaction to that, and there may be multiple times throughout our lives, will we become a person who says, I'm going to seek back? Or are we going to become a person who says, I don't have time for that? And I see you as somebody who's kind of in that phase where you're kind of like going, okay, if there's something out there, I sure want to know.
Babies. Right? I feel like I'm taking baby steps.
Yeah.
Good. I certainly don't feel like it's big leaps into anything. Maybe that's not my personality when it comes to something like that, because when it's time to, I guess, in the days of when I was younger, when they went to church camp and all that stuff, or reborn, you feel that at the end of the week when they finally have that candlelight service, you feel all those feelings. And that feels so good. But in time, if you don't kind of stay with it, it fades away. And I think even if you do stay with it sometime, if you're not vigilant with it, it fades away. Because just going to church, just going and doing that act of every Sunday is not going to keep that feeling with you.
Yeah, and the Bible teaches us that worship is a lifestyle, not an event.
Yeah.
And too often times what we've done in especially modern church, I think, is we've created an event out of it, right? Every Sunday you come to worship.
Yeah.
And so people go, I live the rest of my life kind of doing my own thing. But 1 hour a week, I go and I worship and we make an event out of it. And, that's kind of like, can you have a true friendship or even a true romantic relationship if it's scheduled?
Yeah. Or if you only see each other once a week or even, less than that.
And when it is, it's an event, not just a moment.
Because I see that with, Facebook and stuff. People will say, well, this is my friend here. Well, then that's a Facebook friend. Your real friends, maybe you don't see them every week. Maybe you don't see them every month, but you do see them somewhat on a consistent basis, or you make effort to make sure you see them or to call them to have them come see you. But it just seems so, it's like when I hear about couples that have been married, oh, this is sex night. It's Wednesday. Okay, that's 8 o'clock. Hurry up, get in bed. Let's get the thing done. And we'll be asleep by 8:15. When it becomes a scheduled event, it never to me seems as special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that kind of freaks people out a little bit is that the Bible talks about our relationship with God in very romantic terms. In the culture that we live in, we have a really hard time separating romantic and sexual. Romantic really means that you have this deep, passionate interest in this other person. You want to discover them. You want to understand them. You want to have intimacy. Once again, another word that way too often gets really, mixed up with the whole concept of sexuality. God doesn't want to have a sexual relationship with us, but he definitely wants to have an intimate relationship with us. He wants to be wanted. He wants to be loved. He wants us to kind of seek after or pursue him as well. I mean, you've had relationships, whether they be romantic or whether they just be friends, that you look and sometimes you go, I don't know, man. I'm not sure this other person really cares about me. Like I've been the one to initiate contact like the last 20 times, right? I call them, they never call me.
Right.
I talk to them, they kind of, don't quite respond to me. And it's something about our human spirit that really desires that. I want to be wanted. I want to be somebody that you want in your orbit. And I think God wants that just like we do.
Yeah, because when you really think about intimate, it's that person who you really feel comfortable to share almost anything with. And it's more of a sharing of your mind and your soul as opposed to a sharing of your physical self.
Yeah. Yeah. The physical part of it is really the kind of the end, the icing on the cake, if you will. Yeah. It's even in a romantic relationship. I think so many marriages struggle because there's no intimacy. There's just sex. And we think that because there's sex, there's intimacy.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't have to have any intimacy to have a sexual relationship with somebody. And yet at the same time, I think what we all really desire is the intimacy. We desire that heart connection, the soulmate kind of concept,
Yeah, I get that. Even the most of unlikable people want to at least have one person in their life. And you see that where even you'll see from time to time, you'll see people grasping at straws just to have it. They don't care who it's with. They just want to feel that closeness to somebody, whether it's intimate or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So your opening kind of thought about the watch hours. I have heard of people speaking about that before. There's been times in the middle of the night where I've been able to have really great times of prayer, closeness with the Lord. Of course, a lot of that is there's not a whole lot of distractions at that time. And we live in such a busy, such a distracted world. And all the distractions in our world, they affect all of our relationships.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that happens to me, though. And I think to really do it right when you wake up, you have to actually get up, sit up, and pray. I'll go get back in bed. 'Cause I told you, baby steps.
Sure.
I'll go get back in bed and then start, praying for what I perceive as good prayer. And then I'll wake up at 9 a.m. and say, amen.
I've been there, done that. I don't think God is offended at that. And sometimes we think, prayer time has to be this really intense kind of like, and you got to have these emotions and these feelings and all that kind of stuff. And
maybe that sleep is you actually connected and are connecting in a subconscious way with him. I don't know that answer, but many of those times, like I said, I knew that I was praying and I wake up later and say, amen. So is it because I just finished the prayer or because I woke up and realized that I fell asleep during it?
I don't know. That's a good question.
It's weird. This is just a really weird place in my life when it comes to something like this, because we're asking some questions and we're not throwing anything in anybody's face, or we're saying this is the way, this is what you have to do. We're exploring, and to me it's almost the same thing as religion, and your walk with God is going to be, everybody's walk is different.
Yeah.
Where if you go get diagnosed for a broken leg or whatever and they'll do it and they fix it all a certain way. Or let's even go further with that. I talk about this with cancer a lot of times. You get a diagnosis of cancer, and the AMA, the American Medical Association, has a playbook. Here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. Mm-hmm. They don't really go into how old is this person. Ethnicity makes a big difference. Lifestyle. How do you eat? They just go, here's how we're going to treat this. And that's not how it should work. And that's how it seems like it has been with religion and God. It's cookie cutter.
Absolutely.
Where each person is on a very different walk.
Yeah.
A different path.
You bring up an incredibly important point, that religion is man's attempt to organize what we believe in our relationship with God, right? And so we create these, playbooks. These this is what you do, and unfortunately, so many people think, well, if that's what the church is saying, then that must be how it is, and they play the book for years and years and years and never really actually have a deep soul personal connection to God. They can miss out on so much of that.
Do you think religion kind of prevents people maybe sometimes from getting a more pure connection, I guess?
Not exclusively. I don't think it necessarily has to accomplish that, but I think way, way, way too often it does. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't pursue a relationship with God himself, but we go and we just do the program, right? We could think we're getting everything we need and end up missing all of it.
And I think with my experience from religion, it's a lot of people like, well, I'm going to church every Sunday. I'm paying my tithing. I'm doing the Wednesday activities. Why am I not getting, the blessings of heaven and stuff like that? But I always looked at it as more of a more personal experience where religion was helpful for it, but I didn't need religion to have a personal connection with God.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like in a husband-wife relationship, and you were talking, Rob, a little bit ago about if you schedule sex night or schedule any of those kinds of things and make a program out of your relationship, it may work for efficiency.
Right.
And in America, in Western culture, we are all about efficiency, right? And we can program ourselves right out of a real relationship. And that's one of the things we have to be very careful of. And it can be, Rob, you've talked about your experience in church growing up. I wonder if maybe that was part of your struggle then, was that everything was a program. And if you were never shown that it was deeper, more, that there was something different involved, maybe you missed out on everything that God had for you in that time frame.
Well, for one, just that regular church services are not for kids. I mean, right. They're not for kids. That's why they have Sunday school, and the kids leave 1/3 of the way through it.
I was going to say, a lot of times Sunday school isn't even for kids. But anyway.
But you know what I'm saying? Typically halfway through the service, before the big sermon, all right, let's all the kids get together. They're going to head out to Sunday. At least that's what I remember from at Hope. And that's how they did it. I don't know if they still do it that way or not, but they send the kids out halfway through. The big sermon happens, and then it's not. But they're sending the kids out. But now you're still leaving 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, 17, 18, whatever, the younger or the older kids that have to be there. And those sermons aren't for us. I mean, you start listening for a little while, and then we just zone out, start nodding our heads and falling off to sleep. Now, as an adult, you can listen to it a lot more intently and say, okay, I'm getting it. Even though adults' attention spans are incredibly short. Also, the kids are even shorter, and we need something else to stimulate us, so it was always, okay, well, I can get through this, and after I get through this, I'll be able to go to Sunday school, or I'll be able to go hang out, and we'll be able to shoot some baskets for a minute before it's done. So that was always the reward. Same as school for me. School was okay, but the reward was after school, getting to go play ball, getting to go do the musicals, getting to go do those things. That was the reward of school. Lunchtime with your friends. English, math, sucked. We did it, and we had to obviously get our grades to graduate and all that stuff, but that's not what makes school fun. And church can be fun too, but the sermon is not typically it.
Well, and even looking back to school, I think each of us in the room could probably agree, anybody listening could probably agree, there were some learning environments that were inspiring.
Right.
And connected you.
Sure.
There was a teacher who made their teaching engaging. They asked questions. They interacted. They helped you develop this idea of thinking and pursuing knowledge on your own. And there were other teachers who would just get up in front of the class and deliver information and hope enough of it landed on your head and into your brain that you could pass the test and pass the class. And we've learned that all of these people sitting in rows facing one direction is not the best way it may be the best way or maybe a good way to learn information, but it's not the best way to really engage in something that's experiential and important, like a relationship. And so a lot of times that's where the whole church thing breaks down too. Now, if that's a piece of your experience, your spiritual experience, that's great.
Yeah.
But it can't end there. And for so many people, because of the crazy busy lives that we've got, that's all I make time for. That's all I have time for.
Yeah.
Right. And so when that's all I have time for, we miss out on so much.
Yeah. And it's almost kind of, to me, it's one of those things that if you want to kind of be that better person, find something in your life that you do for a living that actually may be able to help with all those lines. Is what when I look at what I do, I don't have to talk about this religious stuff. I don't have to look for search these answers and put it out for people, because I just don't have to do it.
Right.
But I do it because I think it has a bigger purpose. I'm not making any money. Amanda's not making money to be here. You're not getting paid to be here. We're doing this because we want to communicate to people and maybe give them a better life. So to me, that's where I try to be, and nowhere do I want to say godly in any way, but try to do the right things with also doing the things I like to do.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I mean, we all have things in our life that we desire, and those desires, I believe, are put there by God when we keep those desires in check. Those desires can be a beautiful thing. We can explore those things and enjoy life. It's when those desires get out of check that they can become problematic.
Well, which is incredibly easy to happen. It happens without even knowing it.
Sure.
And then you're just there and you're like, ooh, how did I get here? And why? I feel lost. And I know there has to be just about every person in their life at some point has to feel lost.
Yeah. Well, in all kinds of different ways. You could use food, for example. Obviously, food's not a bad thing. We have to eat.
Right.
God created food for us, and it
eat to live, eat to live, not live to eat.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When done in check, when we use our food for fuel, sometimes for pleasure and enjoyment, it's a beautiful thing. But obviously, we can get to the point where, and like you said, find ourselves lost, looking in the mirror, going, "What the heck has happened to my body?" Or hearing a diagnosis and going, "How in the world did I get here?" And all of those things, we have to look at life and we have to have some kind of framework so that we know how we should interact with all of these different things, relationships, and the things that we enjoy in life, and our physical body, and all of that. And I really believe that that's what God desires to do. And I refer back to the Bible all the time because I really believe it's actually a good manual for life.
Sure.
I hear. I'm trying to think of what it is. Recently, there's an organization that does mental health stuff, counseling, and things like that. You hear it online all the time. They're advertising for it, and one of their pitches is, "Life doesn't come with a manual. You need a counselor." And I'm like going, "Yeah, life kind of does come with a manual. It's here,
right?
We've just left it on the shelf."
Yeah, we've separated. We're separated the church and state. And that's where it is. So even if you're
the church and life,
but that separation of church and state it's to me, it's obviously not true, because like I said, all of our laws are based on the Bible. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, when you want to talk about a mental health place, which is run by the state, they leave religion. I mean, that's all got to be left right out of it, rather than finding something bigger for yourself. What is it? They kind of try to do those same things, but God isn't that way. Find something to do, find something instead of, maybe you might want to spend a little time with the Bible.
Yeah.
When I was more religious and would read my scriptures and pray more often, I really didn't, if I'm looking back at everything, I really didn't need so much counseling and therapies then. Like, I found I had a lot of self-discovery where I could get through my problems. And then when I took time away and was lost, or however you would describe it, I started going to therapy, like real, like intense therapies and stuff like that. And it was very helpful. Like I credit it with saving my life almost. And I'm slowly reconnecting back, because now it's more of okay, you got the tools, you can do this. And so I'm on my own again, and I'm trying to be more like, okay, I'm feeling more overwhelmed. Let me just remove myself from distractions and try to connect to my spiritual side a little more.
Yeah.
So maybe, counseling could be good. At the same time, if we're lost and we just don't know how to connect to this, whatever it is we're longing for, maybe seeing a pastor or somebody could be helpful.
I think that's a good one, seeing a pastor, because when I start thinking about the mental health community, especially psychologists, I think most of them are a bunch of quacks. And people walk in there expecting that they're going to go and say, "Here's my story. Here's what's happening. Tell me, how do I fix it?" That's not how it happens. What happens is you come in and they say, "Well, you're not fixing this right away. You need to come in next week. You know what? You're especially crazy. You need to come." Well, they don't tell you you're crazy. You need to come in every Tuesday and Thursday. And what happens, it's not the fact that they're telling you what to do that will make you better and to help you out. It's the fact that you're laying on that couch or sitting in the chair and you're getting it out to them. It's you're releasing that pressure inside of your brain to them. I really don't think most of the time it's their diagnosis is on how to fix you and make you better. It's the fact that you you go in there and have someone to talk to where you feel you can tell them anything and that there's going to be no repercussions for it.
But with the mental health community, you have to realize a lot of it is broken. It's broken just like the medical side.
It's worse.
And what happens is there's different degrees of people that you see for different things. If you're going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they're going to be prescribing medications, which is chemicals. And these chemicals will make you happy. If you go to like a psychotherapist or a therapist, they're more likely to give you the tools you need to manage whatever it is you're struggling with. And hopefully it connects with you and you can use those tools to move forward. If you're finding yourself stuck and you talk about the same thing, it's always going to be in your head.
Yeah.
You're never going to get better.
Yeah.
You have to be able to break through. So it's a lot of internal work that needs to get done, but hopefully you have a team around you, whoever it is, to help support you and help you get stronger. But everybody's so isolated right now and they don't realize to get stronger, you're going to have to, get punched in the face a few times and move forward still from that. You can't let one little, oh no, I went to the store and I was overwhelmed because the cashier was a little rude. I can't do this. I'm just doing the online shopping from now on. You're not going to be a stronger person and you're going to stay miserable and unhappy. Like, we have to get out of our comfort zones.
Yeah. With all that being said, I am now going to launch my psychological services. And normally they're $250 per hour at a psychologist. I will do it for $125. I have a couch.
Generous.
You can come in and spill your guts. Tell me everything. I won't tell anybody. But I'll do it for $125. And I bet you can come and see me once a week. You'll feel just as good coming and talk to me for an hour once a week than you will going to a therapist and spending twice as much money.
Well, that's why I find I get people coming back into my life constantly because they need me to, in a kind way, tell them what they're doing wrong and what they need to do. Now, if they take that advice and
unburden
move
themselves
forward,
and burden you.
that's exactly what happens. That's why people who do, Mylan probably understands this. Like if you're helping somebody who's an energy sucker, like you have to step back and you might need a day or two to collect all that energy back for yourself. And it's hard healing people. It really is.
Well, we all desperately need connection. We need somebody to listen to us. And we've gotten to the point where people will pay somebody to listen to them.
They're hookers.
If they don't have...
They're mental hookers.
Well, I don't want to go that far. There are people who are especially gifted to be able to listen and to offer advice and to coach people and to help people. And I don't want to down the whole counseling profession.
Yeah,
there are
some,
there are some counselors that are wonderful people, very gifted.
I will agree with that.
Yeah. And there's definitely a need for that. But again, once again, it's all about the edges, right? Where are we out of balance one way or the other? And I think to some degree we are in some ways so out of balance for some people. All of their relationships, all of the people that they actually talk to are people that they pay to listen to them. Mm-hmm. So we have to be careful that we don't allow that to happen either. And again, I think it comes back to this idea that we are spiritual beings, right? Rob, you are a soul having a human experience. You're not a body that just, operates and you've got a brain inside and blah, blah, blah. And all of that.
Thank you for being the first person to tell me that. I actually have a soul. You have a heart too? Yes, I do. Maybe.
Oh, it might be broken, but you've got one. But at the end of the day, I think we try to fix everything externally, and the inside is what's really hurting. That's the part that really, needs something. And so, we find ourselves at different times seeking something different, looking for something different. And I think that's a great thing. The way we respond to that is, I think, what makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And, how does somebody who maybe, let's say they're not confused, but maybe they are seeking something else, but they just don't know where to start. They're like, I'm missing something. So there's something in my life that it's not working. Let's say they've never been even introduced to God. There are many people that just have no idea who that is. They hear God. Okay, yeah, what is it? They think of Thor. They think of the Greek gods and whatever. They don't think of. Well, it kind of caught me myself tongue-tied on that one a little bit, just because that is when you start thinking about gods,
Sure.
and especially now with Marvel movies and all that stuff, they've given you a picture of what a God can look like and the powers that God has. But the God that we see, or especially with Jesus, I would assume that God looks somewhat like his son and has the beard, the long hair still, and the flowing gowns, and that's what I see when I think of God and Jesus.
Well, the Bible tells us that God is spirit. Jesus is God in the flesh. So the only physical representation of God is the person of Jesus.
Yeah.
So, but I want to back up to your question, because you started to ask a question and then you kind of moved beyond that a little bit.
I do that sometimes.
No, that's good though. But the question was, so what about that person who's kind of feeling a little bit of, this wonderment or seeking, whatever.
Something's missing.
So the first thing I would do is I would say, be careful about what walls you've put up, right? There are some people who've just said, there isn't a God, period. And for them, they're kind of, if there is a God, then they've just kind of already defined this idea that I'll never meet him. So I think, first of all, at least opening yourself up to the idea that there might be something else out there. And even as you started about this watch hours kind of concept, is it possible that is a time when I can communicate with God? It reminded me of a story in the Bible of a child named Samuel. Samuel ended up growing up to be a prophet who anointed the first king of Israel, Saul, the second king of Israel, David. But when he was a child, his mother committed him to the Lord. I'm going to try to get enough into this story to make sense of it without going too far. But basically, she couldn't have children. She went to the temple, prayed that God would give her a son. The Eli, the priest that was there, said, a year from now, you'll have a son. She did, in fact, become pregnant. And decided to commit this child to God. So when the son was born, she waited till he was weaned, and then she took him and presented him at the temple and wanted him to grow up at the temple. And so a unique story, kind of a different kind of concept, but Samuel ended up living there at the temple with Eli, the priest. And in the middle of the night, part of the story goes that Samuel awoke to a voice saying his name, Samuel, Samuel. And so he jumps up and he runs into the other room and he says, Eli, you called. What do you need? What do you want? And Eli goes, what are you doing, boy? You just woke me up. I didn't call you. Oh, okay. Goes back, lays down. Same thing happens again. Samuel. He jumps up, runs into the other room. Eli, surely you called me. No, I didn't call you. Go back to bed. Samuel goes back to bed. The third time the voice says, Samuel, Samuel. And Eli realizes what's happening. And Eli says to him, you know what? The Lord is talking to you. So next time when this happens, you just say back, speak, for your servant is listening, right? It's this openness that, first of all, acknowledges God might be trying to speak to us. And second of all, says, okay, I'm open. I'm listening. Yeah. What do you have to say to me, God?
Yeah.
And that opened up, that was kind of Samuel's, the beginning of his awareness of God, which ended up becoming, a powerful thing.
Yeah. And I'm going to bring this back again a little bit more, because when you are searching, the devil is also, and evil is also searching for you.
Oh, absolutely.
And so while you're searching and you say, I'm missing something, I think that you have probably the same propensity to go towards good or to go towards evil, because when you're looking, you're looking, you don't know what's out there. And if evil gets to you first, you might not be able to thwart that.
It's very, very insightful, Rob. You're absolutely right. Not only do we have to acknowledge that there is a God being who is holy and just and loves us and created us and has these amazing plans for our life, but we also have to realize that there is an evil force. And maybe we could get into that in a different podcast, talk about, conspiracy ideas and all that kind of stuff. But being aware of that, and then it becomes, okay, now what voice do we listen to, or how do we find the right voice? Which reminds me of another scripture. And this is a passage of scripture that I think is there's a favorite verse, right? As a matter of fact, maybe our listeners have heard this. Maybe you've heard this before. That says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." To which we all go, "Oh, God, creator of the universe, big almighty God, he's got big plans for me, plans to prosper me and not to harm me." And oh, that's lovely. That's wonderful. And this is in Jeremiah 29. But 2 verses later, it says this, "Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me, and you'll find me when you seek me with all of your heart." So God is saying, I'm out there, and I've got this plan for you. But there's going to be something that you need to do as well.
You're going to have to execute it.
Yeah, you're going to have to seek me. You're going to have to you're going to have to look for me, right? Yeah. And that's it goes back to that romantic concept. We all love it when somebody has a crush on us, when somebody's chasing after us, when somebody wants to be with us, right? And God is saying, I've demonstrated my love for you. I've done a lot. Let's see how you're going to respond. Are you going to pursue me at all? Are you going to look for me? Are you going to seek me? And I love the fact that this comes across as a promise. You will find me when you seek me with all of your heart. So I think it comes back to that whole idea that sometimes we have to go, okay, God, if you're out there, and I've counseled actually a lot of people who've been in a very similar space to where you're at, just kind of a bunch of questions. I'm not like on board. I don't necessarily know that I believe what you believe or think what you think, but man, something's kind of, poking at my heart here. I tell them, spend 30 days and just say, God, if you're out there, I want to know. Show me. Through a conversation, through a scripture, through a situation or an incident. And I believe that if we kind of take that seeking posture, that God will reveal himself to us.
Yeah. Amanda, do you have anything to add to that?
Probably not as good as Mylan just put it, but definitely the seeking, and you attract what you seek.
Absolutely.
That type of mentality, yes. I really do believe is true.
Yep.
And I've always looked at God as like a heavenly parent. And that's how my relationship with God is that he is a heavenly father up there watching over me. And you go to your father when you have want to share something or you need some guidance or help with something.
Which is probably the need for why you say that need for the commandment, honor thy mother and thy father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's, if you can honor them, you will also honor me.
And I have to say this thing at this moment, because I know that there are so many people out there that the concept that God is a father, there's so much baggage that can come with that. Mm-hmm. For a lot of people, they've had a really, really crappy father experience. And so I want to just clarify that for a lot of people, you're going to have to imagine God, you're going to have to see him as that ideal father, and try to take some of the baggage off of, or all the baggage off of whatever your father experienced.
Think about that friend that you had. It's, I wish my dad was like that.
Absolutely.
And that happens probably to everybody. I mean, growing up, through some of my dad's issues, I didn't see him much after they got divorced. But did I have a bad father? I guess on the metrics of if he's there or around. My dad went to Vietnam and came back with really bad PTSD. He was shot a few times. He has 2 Purple Hearts and all that good stuff. So, and a Congressional Medal of Valor, not the big one, but of Valor. And I think a Distinguished Service Cross, I do believe. But he came back, and obviously when you've been through what he was through, and you watch your friends, people that you got into the service with or whatever, die right next to you, that's certainly going to affect you. Yeah, and then absolutely. You come back here and you're affected. How do you become a family man when you've just watched so many of your friends being killed and the horrors that you have seen? Now, through most of my life, I couldn't accept that. It wasn't about him. It was about me. But now that he's getting older, in his literally 77 years old, I'm almost 54 years old. I'm starting to see it finally at a little bit more of it's about my dad and things that I couldn't see through the lens of a child towards my father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It takes some of our own life experience for us to really begin to really appreciate what other people have been through and how that may have affected their ability.
Yeah. And I don't boo-hoo about it because I know there's a lot of people out there who have had some very evil fathers who have done some awful things to, I mean, and not just to their family, but to people around them. They're just not good people. So he wasn't a bad person in any way. Don't want to say that, but he had been through something that I could never comprehend. And without being able to comprehend what it is, it's just me as a kid saying, well, he has no time for me. Now, the bad thing about it is I had someone else also telling me that too, and that wasn't necessarily a good thing. But that's family dirt. I'm not going to go through all that because I love both my parents very much. But
well, I'll tell you what, if you want to talk later, I'll sit and listen now, like a counselor.
Yeah.
I will say though, just from I was in Iraq, so I've not been through anything like your dad had been through, but for a lot of veterans, especially combat veterans that come back, they believe, because I've felt these feelings too, even during my divorce, like they're better off with the other parent because, I'm going through my own PTSD stuff and it's very different and dark. This is not stuff that is, I was in a car accident. Now I have PTSD. And a lot of people can diminish veterans, especially their PTSD. Their PTSD can be garbage on the side of the road. That could be a bomb. So they don't really understand the day-to-day, how stressful it can be for a veteran just living a normal life that you would live. But a lot of veterans will isolate, say, no, the kids are better off with the other parent. The kids are safer not having a relationship with me because I'm so bad. And just to give a little clarity, maybe some people can give a little grace to parents that they may have had a rough time with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not to say one's right and one's not right, but just a little bit of what goes through the head.
Yeah. And I would have to say that none of us get to the age that we are without having suffered some post-traumatic stress.
Sure.
I mean, that's life. It's part of life. Now, war is a whole different animal, but we've all been through something where we saw somebody who has been, whether they've been beat down or you see someone in a horrible car accident, or you're in a horrible car accident. There's no way in life to live life and never experience that kind of a situation where you have some kind of post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. Children that have been abused, so many different things. And it goes back to just this idea that we live in a very broken world. And it's important for us to just simply acknowledge that, embrace it. And then, how do we move forward?
Yeah. And one of the mentalities, I think, certainly as Christians, and I'm not really going to even, I believe I am, but I'm not going to lump myself within that, is that we have to be the leaders and know that it's not just okay that we are doing right. We have to somehow try to show we're doing right so other people can lead by, so you can lead by example. We have to be able to reach out to people that may not believe the same things. And I think that's kind of where a lot of times with Christians it's like, I'm just taking care of myself. And as long as I take care of myself and I do right things and I keep to myself and do all this, I'm going to be just fine. But I think part of being whether you want to call and say, hey, man, let's go have a talk about God, it doesn't have to be about that. It's, hey, man, let's just go have a talk about life. Yeah. Hey, man, let's go get together and have a cup of coffee and talk about life, or some other friend. Let's just get together and BS a little and chat. And, a lot of times you get to those places where you may not be talking about God, but you're talking about morality. You're talking about doing good things, which will, whether you use the name or not, will lead you back to him. And if you don't, and you're not specifically saying God, 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 you're actually doing good things, and you're contributing. At that point, you contribute to society. You'll most likely feel better about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I found in my desire to help people, I found myself way more successful when I don't allow religion to lead the conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. People,
I believe,
blinders go on a lot of times when it starts, when you say God or Jesus, all of a sudden, whoop, that's not where I'm at. Whoop, gone.
Yeah. And what Jesus actually taught us was you lead with love. So that may mean that there's no words at all, but you show up when somebody is hurting.
Show love and compassion.
You know what's happening down in the Hurricane Helene arena right now. There's a lot of Christian groups that are just saying, "Hey, we're not here to preach at you. We're just here to serve.
We're here to help you.
We're gonna sacrifice some things to come and love." And it's not just Christians, but I think that's one of the things that should set Christians apart. Not what we believe, what we stand for, or our moral positions, but it should be the fact that we love.
Yeah, what we do.
Yeah. And
that's why I say, remember, I've said it several times, don't listen to what people say, watch what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fourth watch hour. I would highly recommend people out there maybe to look into it, what it might be.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself waking up every night between 3 and 5, maybe somebody's trying to communicate with you. But within that being said, that 3 and 5 hour where God maybe in the video that I had watched, and I don't just take everything, this is to heart, but let's say it is right. During that 3 to 5, that's when he is trying to communicate with you. But between 3 and 5 is also the most evil hours.
Yeah.
So that evil is also looking for you.
Yeah. There's an old, I think Native American story. What do you call the stories of it? Anyway, can't find the word that says, there was an Indian boy growing up, reaching kind of the age of manhood, and he went to the chief, and he said, "I'm struggling with this thing. I keep having this dream that there's a white dog and a black dog, and they're fighting." And he said, "I keep having this dream over and over and over again." And he says, I need to know which one is going to win." And the chief looks at him and says, "The dog you feed the most will win."
Mm-hmm.
And it's this idea that in each of our lives, there's an evil force and there's a good force that are not fighting for control of us, but for fighting for control of the world that we live in,
the universe
that we create around us. And the direction that we look, the dog that we feed the most is the one that's going to be the healthiest. It's going to win. And in those hours, I think you're absolutely right. If we think about evil things and we seek evil, we will be filled with that. If we decide to turn our eyes toward God and seek after him, we will find him.
And with that being said, I think that's a great place to finish this talk. Definitely an interesting one. It was something that I haven't really known much about, and Mylan knows it. You're certainly not an expert on that, so we got to even explore a little bit about that too. And I will say this though, I did see another video that I didn't watch, but it was a video where Billy Graham actually explains the watch hours. And I think that probably, I haven't watched it, but I bet you that's probably a good one to hear from someone like him. But
can you send me those links, Rob?
I sure can, and I will. And I could almost maybe tell them right now I can't.
Well, do you want to put those can you put those in the show notes?
I can put those in the show notes. Yep, I'll put in the show notes. I'll put those links to the videos, the one about what C.S. Lewis says, and then I'll put the one for Billy Graham in there.
Then I'll just go to the show and I'll get the
show and get that. Yes,
and all of our listeners can do that too.
And
share it with somebody else.
Yes, and that gets me back to one of the most important things about this podcast is we'd love you to share it. We'd love you to tell your friends. Become a subscriber. Go to podbean.com and subscribe there, or anywhere that you get podcasts. There will always be a subscribe button. So hit it. We want to have you a part of it. It tells us that you like what we're doing. And I'm still kind of really baffled that now, as the trends continue with our analytics, we are getting less and less Michigan listeners and more in California, Ohio, Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, and it looks like now that we have almost at least had a download, or somebody in every state has listened to us.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
And we love our Michigan people.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We want our Michigan people following.
For sure.
Share it with your Michigan friends too.
That's right. But yeah, share, like, subscribe, do all those things. You know how to do it. You've been doing the social media thing long enough. But so from Amanda Jones, thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome, Rob.
Yes. It's almost like she was surprised there. Mylan Bittenbender, also always a great conversation. And so
thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah,
Rob.
absolutely. So if you want to know more, I'm Rob Byrd, the host, I guess. You can go to moondogshow.com if you want to hear some of the radio show stuff that we do. But of course, we want to promote this podcast. Go to tabootalkback.com where you can find all of our episodes. We keep them up there and other subjects, and you can find my email address there also if you maybe have a subject you'd like us to cover, because it's sometimes hard to think of something to talk about 2-3 times a week. Well, for some of you guys, maybe.
All right. It's not for you, Rob. Come on, be honest.
Yeah, so well, until next time, this is All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About podcast. We'll see you then. All the Things They Don't Want You to Talk About podcast is part of the Rob Byrd Moondog Podcast Network. Go to tabootalkback.com for more information. Copyright 2024.